Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mordred, and today we are diving into a topic that sparks a lot of conversation. Pride. Every June we see rainbows everywhere, parades and celebrations. But has pride drifted from its original roots? Let's unpack the meaning of how pride has evolved, and maybe not entirely for the better. So, what was pride all about originally? Pride began as a rebellion. In 1969, the Stonewall riots in New York City marked a turning point for the LGBTQ+ community. After years of police raids and discrimination, people fought back. The first pride marches, starting in 1970, were protests, raw, unpolished, and focused on demanding basic rights, like not being arrested for who you were. Back then, pride was about defiance, community, and standing up against oppression, literal oppression, which I believe to have been largely forgotten in favor of these sex marches. The primary reason pride was established was to get the world to leave us alone, and we largely succeeded in certain areas, but in those same areas, people have quickly forgotten the plot and purpose of pride. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't corporate, and it wasn't about wearing your favorite dog collar while crawling on all fours in the middle of the street. It was people saying, we're here and we're not going anywhere, and that we don't want to be prosecuted for who we are. In recent years, the fanatics of the trans movement have co-opted a simple goal into their own personal campaign of self-aggrandizement and pushing of odd ideologies. It is one thing to desire to identify a certain way and wanting yourself to fit certain images, but it's another to try and force others to capitulate to your whims and your crazy ideas, like that trans kids exist. They don't. Any pushback from anyone gets them labeled terrible things that I feel like I don't even need to mention here, because if you've been on the internet in the past 10 years, you know exactly what kind of mindset and rhetoric these zealots push. Fast forward to today, and pride looks different. Don't get me wrong, celebrating identity can be awesome in the right setting, and the progress we've seen, like marriage equality in many countries, is huge. But somewhere along the way, pride started feeling more like a brand or ideology than a movement. Corporations slap rainbows on everything. Sneakers, coffee cups, you name it. Perhaps they can be partially to blame for enabling this behavior through financial backing of ideas they didn't fully research or understand, and simply supported through financial sponsorships and ad campaigns that push hollow agendas. In 2023, global brands spent billions on pride campaigns. But now, that seems less so the case. Companies at large are pulling out funding for these events, and a lot of it, while yes, can be attributed to the recent political shift, it's mostly because, let's say for example, Target does not want to be seen supporting events where people are being sexually perverse, especially in front of kids, which is another can of worms entirely, but we will get to that in a moment. A lot of people are either waking up or noticing that within LGBT spaces, that trans was never a sexuality to begin with, it's an identity, and that it does not belong with LGBT because those are sexualities, along with many other titles, simply because those claiming to be trans have gone too far and massively set back the efforts and levels of tolerance people have for anything different but heteronormativity. Incorporating children into pride is largely inappropriate at even the most basic level in its current form. Pride, in an essence, is about sexuality, and that's something kids don't have and shouldn't have yet. This is the hill that zealots will find themselves dying on, and it's damaging the movement even further. This all coupled with the fact that people are fed up with having their language policed, having their livelihoods or jobs threatened when they don't bend the knee and use certain words to refer to someone. Not only has it infringed on people's First Amendment rights, but it also threatened their very livelihoods like their jobs, in the extreme radical trans movement that are targeting. Now, let's talk about the events themselves. Some pride parades now feel more akin to festivals. Corporate floats overshadowing the entire meaning of how it all began and what the event should be for. Further fueled by the vendors selling sexual items and provocative objects. The focus has shifted from advocacy to, well, partying. And not just your standard, let's get shit-faced, but more so into the promoting of ideals and sexually provocative displays of kinks. This holiday isn't really much of one, in the sense that so very little of the population could actually participate in. Black History Month, while I have my own gripes with it, can at least be celebrated by everyone, children included, because of the history of the US. But pride does not at all, in any way, shape of its current form, appeal to the greater majority of the population. Now, there's nothing wrong with celebration, but when pride becomes a marketing opportunity or a sex party event, especially one trying to influence children, we forget the struggles it was built on and harm our image by not condemning the behavior. Making excuses for reprehensible things or ignoring them makes us, and I'm referring to the LGB and the TQ+, look like we are actively supporting and trying to hide disgusting behavior in plain sight. For example, trans rights and issues have co-opted LGB initiatives and fueled agendas that were never really ours to begin with. Oftentimes, you'd see insane morons trying to champion trans kids as a thing, when before, you had to go through an entire process. Until you reached adulthood, you had to go through several levels of therapy, and you had to be confirmed by several different doctors that you are going through a form of dysphoria. And after all that has been greenlit and checked out for, whatever extended period of time that person went through those processes, during adulthood is when the transition process would actually take place. Not before, only after. So, has pride lost its meaning? Not entirely. There are still communities trying to keep the original spirit alive, smaller prides, activist groups, and people who use June to push for change. But they are largely overshadowed by corporate and extremist behavior, distracting everyone from the real efforts of what pride was meant to be. And if we want pride to stay true to its roots, we need to ask the tough questions. Again, I'm referring to the LGB and the TQ+. Are we amplifying the most reasonable voices? Are we holding ourselves accountable for the harmful rhetoric our peers push and attach to us collectively? And are we still fighting for those who don't have the freedom to celebrate? I'm asking all of these questions to the LGB and the TQ+ individuals, but I guess if you are considered heteronormative, you could ask this of your peers too, and maybe if you felt strongly enough about it, help push the idea that you are not an ally per se, but that you don't want your friends' sexualities or their identity co-opted by extremists, and you can help by asking them these questions whenever they're telling you certain things that you don't necessarily agree with, and you're hearing things or seeing things on the internet. Now, while I'm sure a great majority will call me slanderous names and variations of homophobic for the things I've said in this video, but if you even just pause for a moment to consider everything I said in a rational manner, you could perhaps see where I'm coming from, and where others are coming from when they don't want to capitulate to your worldviews. Pride should be a reminder of the importance and of the equality and the understanding that we are all people. That was the baseline. It should be about honoring those who risked everything at Stonewall and beyond, and continuing their work for equality. Not just visibility, not equity, but equality. We are at a point in America where we don't need to fight for the same things Stonewall resistors did, and we need to shift the paradigm before we lose people completely for the next 15 to 20 years. So, what do you think? Has Pride lost the plot completely? I kind of think it has personally. Or is the modern version just a new chapter? I don't think it is. But if you can convince me otherwise, drop your comments and thoughts below. I'd love to hear sensible takes. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And hit that bell so you don't miss my next dive. I hope to see you all next time. Thank you.